To control life is to miss its dance. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Because we've been taught, almost from the cradle, that control is the mark of intelligence, that mastery is the sign of progress, that to let go is to lose. Yet life, if you watch it closely, isn't something that needs to be mastered. It's something that moves, that flows, that sways, like music. And the more you try to grab it, the more it slips through your fingers. You see, the trouble begins when we start mistaking the map for the territory, the schedule for the day, the rule book for the game. We create plans, blueprints, expectations, and soon we forget that these are only sketches. The living moment doesn't care for our designs. It arrives unannounced, sometimes in chaos, sometimes in grace. It breathes on its own. Have you ever tried to dance while thinking about every step? The rhythm collapses, the body stiffens. You become a machine imitating a dancer. And though you might be doing all the right moves, something essential is missing. That sparkle, that effortless spontaneity that makes the movement alive. That's what happens when we try to control life. We become dancers counting steps, singers analyzing pitch, lovers afraid to feel too deeply. We trade the immediacy of being for the illusion of safety. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to control life, life begins to reveal itself as something exquisitely ordered. The order doesn't come from you. It comes through you. The rhythm finds you again, and suddenly, you're not managing the dance. You're moving as the dance. This is why control always feels exhausting. It's a battle against the tide, a clenched fist trying to hold water. You can't imprison a river in a cage of your own making. The more tightly you grasp, the more it leaks away. Yet when you open your hand, you find the water flowing effortlessly across your palm, shimmering in the sunlight. Now, I don't mean to say there's something wrong with structure or discipline. The dance itself has form. Every waltz, every jazz riff, every cosmic motion has pattern and measure. But the vitality of it, the living pulse, doesn't arise from control. It arises from participation, from being in rhythm with what is. And that rhythm, that mysterious intelligence behind all things, doesn't need your interference. It doesn't need your anxiety. It only asks your attention. But attention is not control, it's love. When you love someone, you don't monitor their every move. You delight in their freedom. You find joy in their unpredictable gestures, their laughter, their humanness. So too, when you love life, you stop trying to cage it into your idea of how it should be. You begin to trust its dance, messy, wild, sometimes painful, yet utterly divine in its motion. Have you ever noticed how children move? They don't dance to impress. They don't plan their laughter. They're not thinking about how they appear. They are simply being. Their joy doesn't come from doing it right. It comes from not needing to. That's what control steals from us. That original innocence of movement. The universe itself, stars exploding, waves breaking, birds migrating, doesn't have a master conductor standing behind it with a baton. It happens. It arises. It plays itself. And you're part of that same music. To see this clearly, you have to notice how much of our life is spent resisting the natural flow of things. We fear uncertainty, so we build fortresses of plans. We fear failure, so we cling to routines. We fear loss, so we tighten our grip on people, possessions, even our own identities. But have you ever wondered what exactly you're protecting? What is it that needs all this control? If you look closely, you'll find it's a phantom. A character you've been rehearsing so long that you've mistaken it for yourself. The I who must keep things in line, who must manage the future, who must fix the past. This I is a marvelous fiction. It's the story the mind tells about being the captain of the ship. But life is more like the ocean than the ship. The ship is built from the ocean. The captain, too, is made of water. You see, we imagine ourselves as entities separate from the flow, standing apart, observing, deciding, controlling. But that separation is only a trick of thought, like a wave believing it commands the sea. The wave moves not because it chooses to, but because it is the sea in motion. When you realize that, something changes. You stop fighting the current. You stop shouting orders at the tide. And in that moment of surrender, you feel the deep, effortless intelligence that has been carrying you all along. Control, then, is not power. It is fear pretending to be power. Fear that if you let go, everything will collapse. Fear that without you steering, the world will spin out of order. But what is this world that you think needs your management? Were the stars not shining before you came along? Did the trees not grow, the rivers not run, the wind not move the clouds across the sky? And yet, somehow, we imagine that our small personal will must correct the cosmos. You see, there is a kind of madness in our seriousness. We believe that unless we are constantly tightening the screws of life, it will fall apart. And yet, the more we tighten, the more brittle it becomes. You can't make love bloom by demanding it. You can't make peace last by forcing it. And you can't make life safe by controlling it. Real security, the kind that doesn't vanish with circumstance, arises only when you stop searching for it. Because it isn't something to possess. It's something to perceive. It's already here, in the very movement of things. When you try to control life, you are like someone trying to freeze a melody into a statue. You might capture its form, but the music is gone. The joy was in the play, not in the possession. And so the art of living is the art of participation, not domination. It's learning to move with the rhythm rather than against it. It's realizing that the river of time is not something you can swim upstream. You can only dance with its flow, not to get somewhere, but to feel what it means to be carried. Because when you stop struggling to control the current, you discover it's not carrying you away from life. It's carrying you deeper into it. So long as you believe you are the one doing the living, life feels like a battle to be won. You struggle to manage time, to control emotions, to maintain order in a universe that seems endlessly disorderly. But when you see that life is living you, that you are not apart from it, but an expression of it, the battle dissolves. Because who is left to fight? The ego is the great strategist, forever plotting ways to secure permanence in an impermanent world. It builds fences around its comfort, tries to predict the unpredictable, and treats every uncertainty as an enemy to be subdued. Yet beneath all that vigilance lies exhaustion, a deep, quiet weariness that no amount of success can cure. Because what it truly longs for is not control, but rest. Not certainty, but peace. And peace, curiously enough, is what arises when control disappears. Not when the world becomes peaceful, but when you stop demanding that it should. Think of a leaf floating down a stream. It never decides which rock to dodge or which eddy to enter. It simply moves with the current, turning, spinning, gliding, and landing exactly where it must. That's what you are, a leaf on the stream of life. But you think you're the one steering, and so you strain, resist, and exhaust yourself in an effort to do what the water is already doing perfectly. You see, the ego cannot bear to admit its own illusion. It says, "Without me, nothing works." Yet everything worked before you arrived, and everything will continue after you depart. The universe was not waiting for your permission to unfold. And so, when you try to control life, you are attempting to improve upon perfection, to rewrite the play while it's being performed. Now, I'm not saying that control has no place. We need it to drive a car, to build a house, to bake bread. But that's coordination, not domination. It's participation in the dance, not an attempt to rewrite the music. Control becomes poison only when it forgets its role, when it tries to imprison the infinite within the boundaries of the finite. And behind that impulse to control lies fear, the quiet, trembling thought that if you truly let go, you will vanish, that you will dissolve into chaos, that you will lose yourself. But have you ever asked what this self really is? Is it your name, your memories, your habits, your ambitions? If you peel them all away, layer by layer, what remains? You find something you cannot describe, because it isn't an object to be seen. It is the very seeing itself. It's the awareness in which all experience unfolds. And that awareness has never needed control. It simply is. When you realize that, you laugh, softly, freely, maybe even through tears, because the whole drama of control begins to look rather comical, like a wave shouting orders at the sea, or a shadow insisting it must hold its shape. You see through the illusion, and in that seeing, the grip relaxes, the river flows, the dance resumes. But the beauty of it is, you were never out of the dance. You were only out of step with your own rhythm. Even your attempts to control were part of the choreography. The universe was dancing as your resistance, your confusion, your endless trying. Nothing was wasted, not a single movement. And when you see that, control loses its charm. Not because you reject it, but because you no longer need it. You start to trust life, not as a belief, but as a direct, embodied knowing. Like a musician who stops reading the sheet and begins to play from the heart. And that's when something wonderful happens. You begin to feel, perhaps for the first time, that life is not happening to you. It's happening as you. To live without control doesn't mean to drift aimlessly. It means to awaken to the truth that you were never separate from the movement to begin with. It means seeing that every action, every thought, every coincidence is part of one great rhythm, one eternal unfolding. Imagine watching a flock of birds turning in the sky. Thousands move together, yet there is no leader, no plan. Each responds to the other in perfect harmony, forming shapes that vanish and reform like smoke in the wind. That's what life is doing, moment by moment. You are one of those birds. You are being moved by the same invisible intelligence that guides them all. So why not trust it? Why not let the dance carry you? When you relax into the rhythm, something extraordinary happens. Life begins to cooperate. Not because you've mastered it, but because you've stopped resisting it. Situations that once seemed tangled begin to untangle on their own. People who once felt distant start to reflect your own peace. Even your struggles take on a kind of grace because you no longer fight their existence. You see them as movements in the larger choreography, shadows that make the light visible. And in that surrender, a quiet joy arises. Not the excitement of achievement, but the serenity of alignment. You realize that you don't need to control the story when you are the story being told. You don't need to dominate time when you are the unfolding of time itself. This shift doesn't come through effort. You can't will yourself into flow. You can only stop interrupting it. And that happens naturally, like sleep. Not by force, but by allowing. To live like this is to rediscover wonder. To look at the world not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a poem to be read aloud. You begin to notice the smallest things. The way sunlight rests on a wall, the laughter of a stranger, the sound of rain on your window. You see that everything, even what you once called mundane, is shimmering with unspeakable beauty. Because beauty is not in the thing itself. It is in your willingness to see without grasping. And so life becomes simple again. Not easier, but simpler. Because when you no longer need to control, you no longer need to justify. You stop demanding that reality behave according to your script. You stop fighting with what is. You start dancing. And that dance, that effortless, wordless participation, is freedom. Not the freedom of doing whatever you please, but the freedom of being exactly what you are, without resistance. You discover that surrender is not defeat. It is the ultimate victory, because it ends the war that never needed to be fought. When you stop trying to control life, you return to your natural rhythm, the same rhythm that moves the stars and the tides. You breathe with the universe again, and for the first time, perhaps ever, you feel at home. When you see this, truly see it, not as an idea but as a living experience, a profound stillness begins to dawn. Not the stillness of a frozen moment, but the stillness of a dance so harmonious that every movement belongs. It's the quiet at the heart of motion, the silence inside the song. And from that stillness, love begins to bloom. Because love, you see, is not something you do. It's what remains when control disappears. It's the openness of the heart that trusts the rhythm completely, that doesn't ask the flower to bloom faster or the moon to rise sooner. It just watches in awe as everything unfolds in its own time. Most of our suffering comes from trying to make the music of life play to our chosen tempo. We demand crescendos when the melody calls for silence. We rush through passages meant to be lingered on, and when the notes change, we resist, forgetting that the beauty of the song lies in its change. But the wise musician doesn't fight the melody. He listens. He surrenders to its shape. He plays his part, then rests, then plays again. And that is all life asks of you, to play when it's time to play, and to rest when it's time to rest. To trust the conductor you cannot see, because the conductor is not separate from you. It is the pulse of existence itself. You might ask, but if I stop trying to control, won't I lose direction? No, you'll lose confusion. You'll lose the needless struggle of trying to steer what was never separate from your own motion. Direction arises naturally when resistance ends, just as a boat glides effortlessly when it stops rowing against the current. Letting go is not the end of movement. It's the beginning of real movement. It's when you cease being the dancer who performs and become the dance itself. And what is the dance? It's the eternal play of opposites, the inhale and exhale of the universe, form and emptiness, light and shadow, life and death. Without one, the other has no meaning. Without change, there can be no music. So the dance is not about perfection. It's about participation. You fall, you rise, you laugh, you cry. And through it all, the music continues. The great pulse of existence beats within every success and every mistake. And if you listen closely, you'll hear that there was never any wrong note, only variations in the melody. The moment you stop trying to make life behave, it begins to reveal its effortless intelligence. You notice that even your missteps led you to this awareness. Even your attempts to control were part of the choreography. Nothing was wasted because nothing ever could be. To control life is to stand apart from it, clipboard in hand, giving orders to the wind. To join the dance is to throw away the clipboard, close your eyes, and let the wind carry you wherever it pleases. For it knows the way home far better than you do. You see, the dance was never about getting somewhere. It was about realizing that you were already in motion. You were never the one pushing the wheel. You were the turning itself. And in that realization, everything softens. The need to fix, to strive, to prove, to possess. It all melts away. What remains is what was always here. The simple wonder of being alive. Listen now. There it is. The rhythm that has never stopped. The hum of the world turning, the pulse in your chest, the breath coming and going, the silent laughter of creation moving through you, as you. Do you feel it? That's life dancing. And you are not the observer watching it from the edge. You are the music, the motion, the mystery itself. So let the dance go on. Let it spin and twirl and fall apart and come together again. You were never meant to control it. You were meant to move with it, to be moved by it, to disappear into its grace. And when you do, you will find that nothing was ever missing. Life was always perfect, not because it obeyed your plans, but because it never needed to. Just breathe. Just listen. The dance continues.